Hey everybody, you're listening to the Katana Podcast with me, Invisible Katana. If this is the first episode you listen to, first off, thank you. Secondly, this episode actually ties in very closely with the last one I did, which was my impressions on the 2014 Video Game Awards, as well as my impressions on the first ever PlayStation experience. And this one, of course, talks a little bit more in depth about the games that we got to see, and it's really all about the games in this one. The last one was more just of gaming events throughout the year and things like that, and how I felt about these two events that we got. And I compared a little bit the Video Game Awards this year to the one that we had last year and stuff like that. So if you're interested in some of my impressions on the actual events that we got to see these games at, then definitely check out the last episode, and I'll put a link in this video as well in the description. But just to start things off, the first game I'm going to talk about, and the order I did these in is games I kind of have the least to talk about to the most. So it's not exactly excitement, it's just that some stuff may be so new there's not much I can say, or it might just be a specific type of game, or it's like I can just say, yeah, I'm excited, because there's not much else to really say. But the first one is Street Fighter V, and this is kind of a mix of both. Like, I'm not super excited for Street Fighter V. I do love the Street Fighter franchise. I was incredibly excited for Street Fighter 4 when that first came out. And I realized the other week, like, the reason I was so excited for Street Fighter 4 is because the last Street Fighter I played before Street Fighter 4, and it pretty much, this kind of goes for everyone, was like Street Fighter Alpha 3 or some version of Street Fighter 3, which was really like 10 years, beforehand. And so having Street Fighter 4 come out in, I think, like three or four different versions, like Street Fighter 4, Super Street Fighter, then Arcade Edition and Ultra and all that stuff. So we have like four different versions. I'm not super excited for Street Fighter V because it's kind of been saturated. Admittedly, I haven't played Street Fighter 4 since I got that original one. Like, I beat it, and then Super Street Fighter 4 came out. I didn't buy it. The Arcade Edition I didn't get, and Ultra I didn't get either. And if I do happen to get a PS4, I might actually end up picking that up, depending on the pricing, because I actually mentioned this in my last episode too. If it's still at $40, I kind of feel like that's still just too much for a game. Even the Ultra version is still just old enough at this point where it could be like $30 or $20. I wouldn't expect it to be $20 brand new, because that just doesn't happen unless you're buying like a game online or something. But $30 I think I would be completely okay with. But it is next gen, and that's kind of why I don't expect it to possibly go below 40, and it probably wouldn't, even if it was just coming out for last gen. But Street Fighter V does look good. I know there's a ton of crap going on with it being exclusive to PS4, and that admittedly does kind of suck. It always sucks seeing these huge franchises going specifically to one console. And it's not because like the whole fanboy thing or anything like that. I always just thought it kind of sucked. It's like, man, I can't have it on this system. If this is what you play, if you play Xbox and you don't play PlayStation, then it kind of hits those people really hard. And I got Street Fighter 4 on 360 because I had a 360 before I was able to get a PS3. And if the same thing had happened, I guess I probably would have been okay with it, since we had like four versions of Street Fighter 4. But I never would have been able to play it until I was able to get a PS3. And so it's one of those things that, of course, it sucks to have such a huge franchise, especially like if it's something where it came out initially on this console, like Gears of War, for example, that has when it first came out, it was only for Xbox. So that type of thing always sucks, because like, a good game I just can't get my hands on, or like The Last of Us, how that's only for PlayStation, or even the Uncharted games. It's like, that sucks, but that's how it started. And then you have something like Street Fighter, which since the beginning has just been like, hey, if you got a console and the money, you can get Street Fighter. And now it's like, sorry, if you own an Xbox, you got to have a PS4 or a PC. So it's just one of those things. It does kind of suck for some people, and it does look like a good game. And of course, for people who are really big into the Street Fighter franchise, it really sucks for them if they do happen to only have like an Xbox and they just can't afford it. Like, just because you're in the tournament world doesn't exactly mean you can afford both consoles. So yeah, it kind of sucks for those people. It does look interesting. The gameplay we've seen looks pretty cool. I love the graphics. I like the updated style of like the ink and stuff. It looks amazing. Like, it looks so good. It looks like real ink, when you're watching it. and the designs for the characters are less, I don't want to say childlike. It's like the only word that comes to mind when I try to think of stuff like this, where it was that sort of claymation type of look, but it was like really shiny, so it wasn't exactly claymation. And I kind of use that term all the time when I talk to my friends and I'm talking about the new Kingdom Hearts 3. It looks like claymation, but at the same time it doesn't, and it's like such a weird blend of animation. Like, it looks good, but that's the only way I can ever explain those types of games. They're not exactly cell shaded. Like Street Fighter 4 is very close to cell shaded, but it's not exactly cell shaded. And then, Street Fighter 5, of course, kicks up the realism, so it's even further away from the possibly cell shaded look. But it looks amazing. They have like the little mode that we got to see in the trailer, like this sort of like boosted power mode, which seems pretty cool, and destructible environments where you can kind of move through the stage, which they teased, and then they of course cut back into the main stage that they had set up. But it looks pretty cool. I'm excited to see, of course, what characters we get, if we're gonna get new characters. With Street Fighter being Street Fighter, I think I'm gonna wait, especially because I learned my lesson with Street Fighter 4. But excuse me, like I said, 10 years is a long time, for Street Fighter, so, or around 10 years, I believe. So, it was a really big difference. So I'm not super crazy like, oh man, I got to get the new Street Fighter 5, because, I'm not in the tournaments or anything like serious like that. So I'll probably wait until it's the Ultra Mega Street Fighter 5 Super Ultra Bunker Buster Edition. But I am very excited for it. It does look really cool. And I think what we got, even though it was, of course, like an initial taste, I think it was pretty cool, and I'm definitely excited to see what other characters we get in there, and also just how the characters look with these new graphics and the amazing, upgrade in detail. Like, there's some comparisons you can see of like Ryu and Chun-Li and how they look from 4 to 5, and it is like such an amazing difference, and like just textures in their clothes and all that stuff because of the power of the PS4 and stuff like that. So definitely excited for it. Looks really cool. Sucks about the exclusivity, but I'm still excited for it. It's a pretty cool looking game, and it's Street Fighter. You kind of can't hate Street Fighter. It's a good fighting game. The next one I would definitely want to talk about is one that I think is very popular. I admittedly had like no real like cares at all for this game, honestly. Like, it looks cool. I'm still not incredibly excited for it, but it's Bloodborne. I haven't really looked up anything on this game. I'm sure there's been tons of gameplay that you could find online way before the PlayStation experience, but I hadn't seen anything because I had like no interest in it. I saw the initial trailer when it was like first announced at E3, and it looked pretty cool. It looked interesting. It's like a creepy horror aspect to it. The actual footage kind of changed the way I saw the game, because with that initial trailer, it's just like a super gory horror type game. And then when you play it, it's almost like, it looks a lot like Dark Souls to me. And just like the way the camera is and the characters and how they move and stuff like that. And the way you kind of just, you explore this area, and then it's like, boom, you find more enemies. Plus there's some other stuff thrown in there as well. But it looks pretty cool. I love the co-op aspect to it. I had no idea about that because, like I said, I really had no interest in even remotely looking up this game. I'm still not really that excited for it. I think it looks cool. I hope it does well, because I just want all games to do great. But I think it looks pretty cool. Like, I thought the graphics, like, honestly, and this is the weirdest thing, but, when you go from one generation of consoles to the next, the big thing we all see is, of course, graphics. And all I kept noticing on the main character was, like, the little top part of the jacket. I don't know what you actually call that, but it was basically, like, the duster part of the jacket. And it was like, man, the details in that thing when he moves, like the wind blowing and you could see it swaying. And I noticed that when he killed a certain amount of enemies, the blood would actually get on the character, and you could see the blood on the top of the jacket while it was moving, and it just looked really cool. I think my favorite thing was sort of the elemental aspect that we got to see from one of the big enemies, who had basically like a fire, like pincer or stinger, I guess, for an arm. And because they were basically in like this weird mysterious pool of oil for some reason, whenever he would hit the ground, because his arm was like super heated, it would set the ground on fire a little bit. And I thought that looked really cool, and I'm really excited to see actually more of that type of gameplay. Like, I love the other stuff we saw. The main character looked pretty cool. I don't know if you can actually choose which character you play as. I assume you can. I think that's just kind of like their poster character, almost like games where you can kind of make your own character. Like Mass Effect, they have like the poster shepherd, but technically you can make whatever character you want. So I think it might be in that sense where that's just their poster typical look, but you can make them look however you want to. But I enjoyed it. I thought it looked pretty cool. The weapons were pretty sweet. I love like the cool little, the powerful shotguns and stuff, and the blade, how it kind of is like a giant razor blade and stuff. And then the other enemy has like, it looked like a sword went into the top of the hammer. That's how it looked to me, at least. But the weapons seem pretty cool. They're quite varied. You get to have like the 3-man team. It might be 4. They might end up doing it that way. But it all looks pretty cool. Like, we got to see the really big boss that was in the graveyard as well, which looked pretty cool. And they, of course, just kept killing off the characters until the end. But it looked nice. It was pretty interesting. The dodging mechanics looked cool. The procedural cavern, the one they showed us, I thought was pretty sweet. And you could go through every time, and it's always different. We got to see the other sort of dog, demon dog type boss at the end, which was also pretty interesting to watch. But it does look cool. Like, I never thought the game was gonna look crappy or anything like that. I just didn't have a lot of interest in it, and this definitely, piqued my interest for sure, because it looks really cool. I got to see some gameplay without having to really search it out, because, like I said, I wasn't. But it does look cool. I think the biggest thing I'm interested in is the multiplayer mechanic to it, because I thought this was a single player game. I thought it was like a story driven game where, honestly, based on that first trailer, I just thought that, you were kind of looking for the main character who was like this serial killer, because it was just like a crazy bloody trailer. I was like, I don't really know what's happening. I kind of thought the poster character was kind of killing off these other people, but the poster character is actually one of the heroes. So it's really cool. I definitely want to know more about this story. The action, like I said, looks good. I'm curious to see what other locations that we'll get, in the game, and also if some, what other procedurally generated areas we're going to get. Maybe, city-wise, if it's not just like you go into a place and it's different, maybe just a city can be different, like little stuff here and there. I wouldn't expect like buildings just swap every time, you come outside or anything like that. That would be kind of insane. It would be amazing, but at the same time, it would be a bit much. But it does look cool. I definitely enjoy what we got to see. The multiplayer aspect, like I said, looked pretty cool. The enemies seem fairly interesting. Definitely creepy looking. And I thought that was, of course, really well done. It's a creepy looking game. Like I said, the sort of Dark Souls aspect to it is how I saw it. I think it was just a mixture of how the camera looked behind the character. Like, I haven't played Dark Souls, but I've seen a ton of it. So it's like just the way it looks behind the character, the way you move, the way the location looked, and in Dark Souls, at least in like some of the inside locations, it's just dark and it's like barely illuminated with a sort of magical game lighting, which just lights up your character mostly, and stuff like that. So that's kind of why it made me think of Dark Souls a lot. I have to assume it won't be nearly as impossible, but I'm definitely excited for that. The footage we got, it definitely piqued my curiosity way more than the initial trailer, which was like, okay, cool, creepy, horror, bloody game coming out. And this definitely kind of changed the way I saw the game and how I saw the world of the game in general, and who may be good and, definitely the creatures that are, but of course, bad. But it looks cool. And also it kind of ties into the next game a little bit as far as aesthetics. And that is The Order 1886. And that game, when that one first premiered, as far as the trailer, it definitely interested me. I think it got a lot of people because it's like, okay, it was one of the big things, of course, before we really got our consoles. I believe it was initially announced before the new generation even came out. And it looked really cool. We got to see, it's like 1886, but there are monsters and stuff like that, and crazy weapons, and like sort of steampunk, sort of vampire-esque sci-fi type of stuff. And it looked pretty cool. We got a lot of different footage where, like, the big question on everyone's mind is, like, is this in-game or is this pre-rendered? Like, stuff like that. Is it, just cutscenes? And I was really glad when we got this footage at the PlayStation Experience where they were actually controlling the characters. It wasn't super huge, but, like, the scene where they're on the blimp, at least I thought it was a blimp. That's what it looked like, the way they were climbing down it. that looked really great to me. I was like, this really is in game, and it looked really good. When they were in like the kitchen area shooting up the people, that also looked really cool. I enjoyed getting to see some of the weapons, especially like that super insane shotgun in that one, like that, and the shotgun in Bloodborne could like team up and be like an insanely powerful weapon. But I thought it was pretty cool. They had some interesting aspects, fighting off the characters, the guns, and just things like that. It was fairly simplistic. It was like we actually got to see a human element again, which I think the last look we got was when the character was kind of going up against that demon, which we also got another look at where we got to see a little bit towards the end of that big fight where it's like, oh, the demon comes at the main character, and then it kind of goes from like a gunfight to a knife fight to a fist fight and kind of back and forth. So that was a cool little look that we got from, I think, about a year ago or so. So that was pretty nice. I definitely enjoyed how it looked. I thought, it seems like it's going to be a good action game. I'm more interested in the story, honestly. I think a great story is really what kind of brings us into gaming these days, especially these days, I think. And I'm definitely excited about that, to learn more about these characters, because we don't know too much about them. Once again, I'm sure there's a ton of information I could look up, but it's one of those games, like, I'm excited to see it. I like seeing it. It looks really good. Seems like it plays fairly well. I remember the first time they showed off enemy characters, I believe there was like a weapon that was very unique. It was like a sort of like an acid-based weapon, a phosphorus type of weapon or something like that, where you just shoot the ammo into the air and it kind of just rains, phosphoric acid on people. And it was like an interesting, unique type of weapon, and I'd love to see it. And I'm sure they have this in the game somewhere. I would love our next demo to sort of display the kind of triple war where it's like you and the order, and then you have the human enemies, but then there are like the demon enemies as well, and everyone's kind of just going at it in this giant area. I'd love for that to be our next demo of the game, because I think that would be just really amazing to see. From graphically wise, it would really test the limits, I think, depending on how many people they have in there and monsters as well. But not only would it look good, it would give us a really great display of how you can turn the tide. And that's always great in those types of games where there are, it's you and then you have two enemies that you face against, but those enemies also face each other. So it's always really great to have in a demo, so people like myself can get to see it and then nerdgasm all over that stuff, because it looks really cool. So I want that to be our next demo, but I've enjoyed what we've seen. I love the way it looks. Like I said, the graphics look unbelievably amazing. Gameplay seems pretty cool. The weapons seem like insanely intense in certain areas, especially with the kitchen playthrough that we got to see. The weapons are like just insanely powerful in certain locations, and you have your own little weapons and stuff like that. So it looks pretty cool. They had like some cool melee mechanics that were pretty nice. Like when he was he was like crouched next to a box and the enemy was on the other side and he grabbed him. That kind of reminded me of Uncharted, where you like can grab people and like break their necks basically. But that looked really nice. I thought that was pretty cool. Nice melee combat. Of course, there are more melee scenes like they showed with the monster and he had the knife and stuff. I'm sure you can do that with human characters as well. But I'm excited to see it. I want to see more of the game. I would love to get like a flat out story trailer where it just gives us, maybe not the whole history, of course, but I would love to get a big chunk of history just in a trailer, and we get like all the characters and like really personality wise, because I feel like what I've seen, which once again, this is stuff that I haven't looked up for the game, what I feel like what we see doesn't really give us much of the story or even the characters. Honestly, we have like our main character is the leader of the group, but I feel like that's really about it. Like we haven't gotten any real sense of story. You fight other humans, and once again there's that, and then you fight demons, and we kind of just make up the story from there. And like I said, I haven't looked anything up, so of course this is me solely speaking based off of what is shown at events and not looking it up because I'm not that interested. But I would love to get a trailer where it kind of sums things up for us, and also throws in a couple extra things that we haven't seen yet. Maybe some other weapons, maybe some unique mechanics to the game that we haven't really gotten yet, that may include fighting specific types of demons and how certain weapons work on certain demons better, and possibly magic. I don't believe that's been introduced yet. whenever there are demons involved or, creatures and things like that, magic isn't too far away. So maybe they're hiding that, or maybe it's even out there and I don't know. If that is the case, please let me know. I'll definitely look that up. But it seems really cool. I'm excited for it. Like I said, can't really say too much about how great it looks. I mean, it's a good looking game. But moving on from that, I'm going to go to another game that also looks really amazing. And this one has definitely been getting a ton of buzz. I think even outside the gaming community, just the fact that it is so unique in scale, it's kind of gotten incredibly popular, and that is, of course, No Man's Sky. I like the game. I remember when it was first announced, which was at the Game Awards last year, and it looked great. It was probably, it was definitely one of the big highlights from last year's Game Awards. It was that new game, and the fact that it's procedurally generated, just galaxies upon galaxies, you can just go wherever it's discovered by either you if you get there first or whoever. And I'm sure there'll be a million videos when the game comes out, someone's going to be like, I'm just going to go to every single planet to be the first one to discover it, stuff like that. But it looks great. I don't know, once again, there's a lot of questions to the game because really the trailers show us kind of the scope of it. We go to this planet, we go to that planet, we get to see more of this really cool aspects of it. We got to see a snow planet in the last trailer, getting in the ships, going to the planet, seeing the creatures and the dinosaur-esque creatures and things like that. It looks amazing. As far as combat goes and story goes, I think everyone's kind of waiting to see how that might play out, or if it will just be make your own story. I feel like there's going to be some sort of overarching story that everyone will have, but of course the big thing is going to be just do what you want. Find worlds, find planets, and find items and locations and ships and homes even. Just find yourself within this game and create your own story for this universe, and that's kind of what will fuel the game. You run across other people, and I think it would have a similar experience to the game Journey, except you might actually be able to talk to people. And you just go to a planet and it's oh, there's this other person. If I'm being a decent, human being in the gaming world, I might just partner up with them. And it's hey, I discovered this planet. There's this cave or whatever. There are a bunch of creatures. You want to help me, explore it and, find out what's in there, stuff like that. I think that's going to be the meat of this game. And that's really cool. And of course it looks amazing too. And just exploring all these different planets, and I don't know how big the planets are really gonna be. I mean, the fact that there are just almost an infinite amount of planets kind of speaks to itself. So just exploring one might be just enough, more than enough of your time, and then it's crap, that was just one planet, now I gotta go. I look up and then I just see hundreds and stuff like that. So I'm definitely excited for this game. I think a lot of people are. There's so much to find out, honestly, about the game. There's a lot to see and, of course, a lot to explore, but I'm definitely excited for that one. I don't know, how excited to get or how to balance myself out as far as anticipation for this game, because with it being so new and it's kind of an indie thing, it's we all kind of want to just go nuts over it, of course, but at the same time, it's you kind of do have to reserve judgment until we get to see more. We've gotten a couple of trailers, but really it has all been kind of the same stuff. We got, flying in the ships and things like that. But I'm definitely excited for this one. I think this is definitely one of the ones I'm most excited for. I want to see, what comes out in the coming months and just what we're going to get even after the game's launch, what new additions are going to be put into the game, maybe more story elements, more enemy characters and things like that, more team ups, and you can form alliances here and there, and they'll kind of put different armies and things like that within the game. So there's a lot that I'm excited for, not just when the game launches, but just the scope and magnitude of what can come after the game. I think it's kind of one of the big things that draws me into it, and that doesn't tend to happen because it's just one of those unique games where the simple concept of it is hey, explore pretty much anything and everything. So it kind of leads me to wonder what are we gonna get after the game is officially released, and that's that's not something that tends to happen too often. It's like, oh, we get this game, and then, all right, some DLC is going to come out, some costumes, and, maybe some cool storylines or some extra chunks of the story that, weren't finished yet when the game initially released. But for a game like this, it's almost limitless. It's like you just don't know. So No Man's Sky is definitely one I'm really excited for. Just every aspect of it is mysterious, but at the same time, I'm okay with that. Like I'm just waiting to see more of it, and I'm definitely excited to get more out of this game, and of course get my hands on it. I'm sure a lot of people, like anyone who's played it, is probably just like fallen in love with it. So I can't really wait to do the same thing. The next game is something that was just announced at the PlayStation Experience, and that is Drawn to Death. That game looked really awesome to me. I think that was a great way to kind of end the show and just have like a crazy, over the top, bloody fighting game, and fight, shoot 'em up type of game with a unique art style to it, where all the characters are moving in unique ways. The weapons are really unique, and it's coming from the guy who did God of War and Twisted Metal. You can only imagine what other stuff we haven't even seen, since it's still in pre-alpha stage. So I'm definitely excited for that. Like I said, I think it was an amazing way to kind of end the show on, and it just looks good. It looks like it's going to be a fun fighting game. I love the fact that all the weapons are just insane. Like, had like the I think it was like a football champion or like a dodgeball champion or something. It was just like a torso, and that's crazy. And pouring gasoline down like a dragon's mouth, and that's how he spits fire. And the unique characters and their styles. I think the one woman who was like a demon, she was really cool. Like, she had like basically like wall jumps and stuff, and all sorts of unique aspects to the characters we got to see. And I'm sure they're going to add a lot more, or they might, of course it's pre-alpha, so I'm sure they're going to end up changing a lot of things. But it looks really cool. Like, we only got to see the one level, and we got some pictures of some other stages, but it looks amazing. Like, I think it's going to be a really good game. Like, it kind of made me think of a game that's actually coming out, I believe, next year. It should be next year on Wii U, and that's Splatoon, and that was revealed at E3 this year. And it was one of those games, like, it's such a simple concept for that game, but it seems like it'll draw you in, much like Crazy Taxi was. It's a simple concept, but that game has spawned tons of sequels for like over a decade, and they're good games. So I'm definitely excited for Drawn to Death. I don't know how much they're going to really add to it, how many characters will be in the final version of the game. It would be amazing if we had like even more characters, because I feel like they showed off, I want to say maybe 5 or 6 or something around that number. I would love it if we had like you could pick from like 10 to 12 characters in that type of universe. I think would be amazing for people, because it would be so unique to play with every individual character and discover all the little intricate details and the combos and special skills that they have. And who knows how if there's even going to be leveling up or any sort of RPG elements as far as upgrading your own character, if they're customs or anything like that. But it definitely looks great. I love the weapons. I love the style to it, where it's just drawn, even bring in the actual artist, the teenage boy himself, and you can use him as like just a death fist and just squash your enemies, stuff like that. It looks pretty cool. I'm excited to see that game develop over time and get some more trailers with some more characters and even more insane weapons. And who knows what that game's going to end up being like by the time it actually comes out. But based on what they have, and even though it's pre-alpha, it looks, of course it's what they're showing off, so even in pre-alpha stage, whatever you show off is going to look amazing. But if that's what the finished product will even look like, that in itself is good. And I'm sure with it being pre-alpha, they can only go up from there. So I'm definitely excited for Drawn to Death. I think it'll look, I think it'll be a very interesting game when it officially comes out. And it seems like the type of game that could easily be download only, simply because of just the little bit we got, pre-alpha, and it's just, a couple characters fighting. But that's one of the other things that does excite me about the game, because with it being pre-alpha, I do wonder how much is going to be added to it. Like, if it will maybe be a Twisted Metal type of thing where the concept is very simple where, even in Twisted Metal, all you're doing is just killing the other characters, but every character does have a story. Every character has an opening, every character has a closing, and you could still have that in a shoot 'em up type of game. So it's one of those things I'm definitely interested, in seeing how it develops over time, if they will add a story for each character, if it will just be one of those games where it's like, hey, you can, buy download only, or if it, does come on disc form, just how it's going to be. And so I'm definitely excited for that, and I can't wait to see, more of it. I can't wait to see them get like a beta trailer out, or some beta footage, or any footage really. I think is going to be pretty amazing to see. So I'm excited for that for sure. And then I'm down to my last two games. The one just before my last is one that I'm very excited for. Is one that without a doubt is going to sell like crazy. It's a really popular franchise, and of course it's Uncharted 4. I love Uncharted. I have all three games. I loved the footage we got. The biggest thing, of course, is the way they ended the footage, where Drake is, he meets this guy and it's like, oh, you're safe, you're alive. And he's like, yeah. And then the guy calls him little brother and is like, holy crap, like, I don't know what to think about that, because we don't know Drake. Like, and, sorry if this is spoilers, so just, kind of muted it for a quick second. But in Uncharted 3, they do note the fact that Nathan Drake is not the descendant of Sir Francis Drake. It's like, that's a fake name. And they kind of just was like, all right, here's this little tidbit, but we'll talk about that later. And they kind of went with the character that said that because, she's dead. But, it's one of those things. It was like, holy crap, that was a big thing that they put in that game. And now we finally get 4, and then they, throw this out there in the footage where it's like he has an older brother. And we learned a lot about Drake when he was younger. And, I'm just like, that was the big thing where it was like, holy crap. I was excited just seeing the gameplay and the graphics, and, him doing the awesome, Spider Drake moves where he's like flying around on a grappling hook and stuff. But that was really cool. And it's like, it just brings in a much deeper element to the story. Because the big thing with the initial trailer is that, it seemed like Drake was probably looking for Sully, because the name of the game is A Thief's End. So it kind of has that doom and gloom sort of feel to it, like, we're going to lose somebody. And the big thing was like, it's Nathan Drake and Sully. And then when we get this footage, it's like, nope, there's a third character, and it's actually Drake's brother. So maybe he could be the one who ends up dying off, which would really suck, because, story-wise, it's like, holy crap, we just met his brother in this game. But I'm incredibly excited for that. I love the Uncharted franchise. I play multiplayer like crazy. That was like the big multiplayer game for me. Like, typically I play my games, I play a little multiplayer, and then I'm done. But I met like a couple of people online playing Uncharted 2 or Uncharted 3 when it had the beta for multiplayer for that. I actually met like a couple of people through that, and we played Uncharted. Like, once it came out, we played through that junk like crazy. We would play hours and hours of that game. And I think it was like the only game I've ever been like, all right, I kind of have to buy these extra levels because my friends are on it. I actually care so much about the multiplayer, and it was so fun to me that I actually spent the money on that. I spent money on the season pass to get all the, super cheap costumes and stuff, although it was really only for the levels. But the multiplayer for that, I'm incredibly excited for. Like, I can't wait to see some footage of that. That's going to be very exciting to see. And, of course, any other story elements they can, kind of throw our way. I can't wait to see. Some more locations would be amazing, because so far, even in the initial trailer, it was the same island that we got in the actual gameplay. So that's the only location they're kind of throwing at us right now, is the little island setting. And I'm sure there's some crazy cavern or castle somewhere on that island. But I'm so excited for the game. I think it's going to be amazing. It has like a really, really dark feel to it, which is actually very cool, because, Uncharted is fairly lighthearted. It's, it's kind of like an Indiana Jones type of thing. That was really the point. But it seems like it's going to be pretty amazing. I'm definitely excited for it. Like I said, the graphics look amazing. It's, of course, PS4, so graphics look great. The action looks really good. They added some new cool cinematic fighting styles. The new grapple hook seems like it's going to be a pretty cool element in it. I mentioned this in my last episode too with Uncharted, where the location itself that they showed in the demo really took me back to the first Uncharted game because it mostly takes place on this one island. And it was definitely pretty cool to kind of just see the landscape, and it's like this just instantly takes me back to the first one. And the grappling hook kind of does the same thing because in the first game, one of the big things they used was the grappling hook, or it was at least ropes that were just like all over the place, and you would jump onto a rope, you grab it, and then you would kind of swing across the walls. And that was a really big mechanic in that first game. And they kind of took it on in the second one because in the second you kind of go all over the place. So you're in like a billion different locations. You're in like cities and villages and all this stuff. So it wasn't as big of a mechanic. And they kind of did the same thing in the third one where you're just in more lively places. They aren't just kind of abandoned, fortresses and things like that. So it was kind of cool to see that because it was just another little thing that took me back to the original game, seeing him use this grapple hook. And it wasn't the same mechanic where he kind of ran across a wall or anything, but it was really cool. And we got to see him fight and use it as a weapon, which was really sweet. Another thing they did was kind of add a nice extra layer of cinematics to climbing, which I've always thought they've done really well in the Uncharted games. And it's something that's so simple. Like, you climb in video games. It's a thing. Like, no big deal. Like, Assassin's Creed does it. Pretty much any game where you're, like, spying or, like, trying to get somewhere, you climb stuff. It's not that big of a deal. But Uncharted makes it so interesting. Because, like, in Assassin's Creed, it's really cool because it's like you're an assassin, you're running around, you're doing parkour, and it looks amazing. And that's their unique way of doing it. And then Uncharted has their own unique way where it's a normal guy doing it, and so it just like they add those levels of danger, and like they showed it several times in this. One part was when Drake was on the rock and it was actually falling down, and he had to climb up really fast and run and jump onto the cliff, and that was at like the very end of the trailer or the footage we got. That was really cool to me. It was like, oh, that's a cool cinematic thing they have. They added a new element to climbing where he took the nail out of the rock face, and then they had like little moments where you could stab the nail to help yourself climb up, and it's like, oh, there's a rock up there to my left, so I have to like do a little bit of a lunge and stab into the rock face, and then try to climb up from there. So that was really cool. Like, one arm kind of extends the motion, the other arm kind of grabs and sets you in your next location. So I thought that was pretty sweet. When he first grabbed it and he kind of had to jump across and he stabbed it and it slid down because it couldn't hold his weight completely, I thought that looked really great. I thought it was like, this is a cool extra layer of cinematics to the Uncharted franchise, and it's just climbing. Like, it's the simplest stuff, but they make it feel so natural, and the little grunts here and there and him running, and they had the little portion really early on when he kind of jumped, and it was like the rock was slanted and there was water coming down it, so he was, as soon as he landed, he was sliding, and the player, the guy playing, had to hit the button and jump in time. And it was really cool. It was a little thing, but those little cinematic moments are kind of what bring out some of the cool features of Uncharted, and we got to see a lot of that, and it was really nice, and I'm just super excited for it. I can't wait to play that game. I'm going to play the multiplayer like crazy. And honestly, I think that's what I'm most excited for, is just to see multiplayer. I think when I actually get the game, I'm always more single player than multiplayer, and that's just because I always love a great story. And Uncharted, they have some amazing storylines. So that's what I'm most excited for overall. But as far as what I want to see next, it's definitely multiplayer, which I'm sure we won't see for quite some time. They probably won't push that out until we're maybe 6 months or something, probably more than 6 months, but much closer to the actual release date, we'll be getting some content and trailers and footage of multiplayer. But that's what I most want to see next from Uncharted 4, is what the multiplayer is going to be like. And of course, we've only had like the initial trailer, and this was our first ever footage of the game, so it's like, I know that's a super long where we're gonna get some more trailers giving a story and characters and where other characters from the last game, the last games are, and stuff like that. So I know that's what we'll be getting next, but I really can't wait to see the multiplayer stuff, and then of course get my hands on Uncharted 4, because it's gonna be an amazing game. And lastly, we have what I consider the third game in this new sort of genre of gaming, and that's Until Dawn. Now, Until Dawn, I think, was a pretty interesting concept. I think, we've, like I said, it's kind of the third game in this new type of genre, which I don't really know how to classify it, but we've had Heavy Rain was the first, and then we had Beyond Two Souls. Now, both those games I always thought were interesting. They were kind of, only the first and second in this new unique genre, so they're still very unique games. They took branching storylines to a whole new level because even the most mundane things were considered gameplay, like, do this, brush your teeth, go to the closet, all sorts of stuff. But they put those in the game. You get to live those characters. And I think Until Dawn is the one that's really had me the most excited. Like, I thought Heavy Rain looked really cool. Beyond Two Souls, I thought the same thing. Like, okay, these are pretty interesting, especially with Heavy Rain when it was the very first one. But neither of those really drew me in. Like, I have to get this game. Like, I need to get this game. And I know they're both good games, but they never really had that big hook for me. And I think the reason Until Dawn has me is because I am a huge, huge fan of horror games. And that's what Until Dawn is. It's the same style as Heavy Rain and Beyond Two Souls, but Until Dawn is in the horror aspect. Like, Heavy Rain was the crime game where it's like we have to find out who this killer is, and it's sort of suspense and crime and mystery. Beyond Two Souls was the more supernatural thing with the spirit and stuff like that. And then this is like the third one, and it takes on a different, genre type, which is horror. And I think, like I said, I think that's what really hooks me for this game, because in those, it's not like, as far as Heavy Rain and Beyond Two Souls, and I haven't played either, I just know some little elements. I played a demo for Heavy Rain, like, a long time ago. But there are cases where it's like, oh man, I messed up and I kind of screwed up this mystery. In some cases, in both those games, I believe, you can get characters killed, but that's not like the main thing. Like, I think in Until Dawn, it's not going to be like, oh, I kind of messed up and I'm not going to get these, some answers or something. It's like pretty much every situation, I have to assume at least, is going to be like, I messed up and I got a character chopped in half, or I got a character decapitated, or something insane, because it's horror based. And another thing that kind of is interesting about this game is that with it being horror based, it changes the concept of the story, because for Heavy Rain and Beyond Two Souls, especially with Beyond Two Souls, they span years. Like, I believe Heavy Rain maybe spans like 2 years with one of the characters, and then Beyond Two Souls just like jumps around decades for the main character. And this one with Until Dawn, you can't have it be a like a horror theme, and it's like, he's been chasing me for 10 years now and stuff like that. At least they could easily find some way to write it in, kind of like a Halloween type of thing where the character's just been getting chased by this one person for who knows how long. But I feel like it's going to be more of a compact storyline, which I think is just, for some reason, that kind of entices me more, because it's just like, this is what you have. It's, if it does follow this sort of horror movie archetype, I guess, and based on what we've seen, it does a little bit where the characters kind of go to this really fancy place, because the character we saw, she was in some place with like a little movie theater and stuff. So they're in either like some crazy mansion that's someone in the game owns, or one of their family members owns it, or they're in like this really cool lodge that like a group of people can rent for however long. So if they do follow that sort of archetype, it's like, all right, we get to play them maybe a day before all the craziness happens, or maybe even the game starts the day of, and it's like, all right, we're packing and all this and that before they leave for the trip. And then it gets to, we go through basically the entire day, and once it gets to maybe the nighttime, that's when things get weird, like, oh no, the power went off, let me go check it out. And then that's when the death starts to really settle in, and then you have to, of course, survive until dawn. So I love the concept of that, because it's so compact. You have all these choices in such a tight-knit location, and you get to decide, do these characters survive this horror movie? You can have, the certain typical horror movie stereotypes outlive what they normally do. You have like the jock who survives until the end, or the person who, like the main character, you could have it where she ends up dying off or something. But that's what really draws me in, the horror aspect and just the compact storyline of it. At least, like I said, this is just me, of course, speculating. but that game possibly being, maybe 2 days, 3 days max, just seems very cool to me. And I don't know why that plays such a big role in, how I like it, but for some reason it just does. Like the compact, the super short timeline compared to Heavy Rain and Beyond Two Souls makes it very interesting. It makes it a bit more impactful, I guess, because it's not like, yeah, I made that choice and then, an hour worth of gameplay passes, but it's like half a year or something for this character, so it's kind of minimal. And then in this case, it's like, no, every option that you have affects the next second. It affects every second from there on out, and it's not like, oh, I ate a bowl of cereal, or I said something here or said something there, and then it kind of just jumps a couple years. It's like, if I did this wrong, I died, or if I said something wrong, it made someone else storm out, and maybe they got killed, by this murderer. So I'm very excited for that. I love the little demo that we got, or both of them, I guess. And the first one was kind of like a little trailer, and I, explained this in the last episode too, where I love the interaction they had at the PlayStation Experience, where the guy demoing it was like, all right, he of course knew all the options that were made the day before at the Video Game Awards, and everyone's like freaking out and stuff when they did that. And so he has the options, and everyone's like, run and stuff, because everyone's, of course, seen the trailer from the day before, or the gameplay, I guess. And then, all the other options come up, and people are like, hide and run and fight and stuff like that. So it was really fun to see that, and I'm just really excited for it. Like, I don't know what it is. It's the horror aspect of it, of course, is a huge draw for me because, like I said, horror games are always my favorite. Resident Evil is like my favorite franchise, despite, more recent games I know are not exactly horror-based like the older ones, but horror games have always drawn me in. Something about this really tight-knit story also really affects me in as far as wanting to play the game because, like I said, it does feel like the choices matter when you really live out these moments, basically 24 hours. It might, of course, skip hours and stuff like that, but it's nothing compared to skipping 2 years or 10 years or something like that. Basically, every choice you kind of see experienced in real time, and you see the effects in real time because you can only skip so many hours if you're only playing across 2 or 3 days. So I'm very excited for that. Those are just a couple of the games I'm really excited for. Like the most, I think those are like the ones I'm most excited for based off of what I've seen from the Video Games Award. I know I skipped over some other stuff like the new Tearaway Unfolded. I didn't get to play the other one. It does look pretty cool. I might actually end up picking it up because Media Molecules, they know what they're doing, and they always make just cool looking games and fun to play games, of course. So probably end up picking that up at some point too. But of course, thanks for listening. I want to know what you guys thought about the game shown off at both the Video Game Awards and the PlayStation Experience. Whether it was brand new, just announced, or if it's, like Uncharted 4, it's just the first footage we got, or even if it's like 1886, it's just that next step of footage that we got. I want to know, what you guys think about these games. Which ones are you most excited for based off of what you've seen? As far as the new games that were just announced at the Video Game Awards and the PlayStation Experience, I want to know which one kind of got you guys really pumped up. Like, was it Street Fighter V if you're a big tournament fan? Was it Until Dawn if, kind of like me, you loved the aspect and the concept of Beyond Two Souls and Heavy Rain, but it didn't really draw you in story-wise? Was it Drawn to Death because, maybe you love Twisted Metal, you love God of War, and what may or may not come out of Drawn to Death? What do you guys think about these games? Both newly announced as well as just new footage shown. Please put your thoughts down in the comments below. If you guys have any subjects that you want to hear me talk about in my next episode, which I will be doing sometime this week. I'm still in like the middle of finals, like fortunately just one more actual day of finals, and then the last one I can just turn in and there's no actual class for it. So, like one more actual day and then I'm free. But if you guys have any subjects you happen to watch this before the week is over, please put your ideas down below if you want to hear me talk about anything random, nerdy, or not so nerdy. But of course, thanks for listening.